Hello all, welcome to today's video. Today we are going to look at Python syntax. What is Python syntax? Python syntax refers to the rules and structures governing the writing of the Python code. So let us get into the syntax one by one in the upcoming slides. First, we'll look at statements and expressions. Statements are lines of code which can perform actions, and expressions are parts of code that produce values. In the sense, here we see an assignment statement. Here x is a variable and then we have 5 which is a value. 5 is now being assigned to x, which means that going forward in the code, the x will have the value 5, which can be used for interpretation or which can be used for multiple operations. As we see here, this line of code is used for incorporating the value 5 to the variable x. Now we look at an expression example. Expressions can be any kinds of expressions. They perform activities on the variables that will produce values. For example, if we see here, we have 2 star x plus 3 that has been assigned to y. As we already know, if these statements come back to back on a Python code, we can easily assume that the value x here is of the value 5. And if we see here, as per this mathematical expression, first 5 plus 3 is calculated, which is 8, and then this value is then later multiplied with 2. So we go with x into 8 into 2, which produces 16. Thereby, we assign y is equals to 16. This whole code here that is given in the green is an expression. This expression performs operations on the assigned value x to produce a value y, which is then later assigned to y. So going forward, if the code is actually executed in a Python code, then y will have the value 16, whereas x will have the value 5. And anywhere x and y's are used, this will be the values of x and y. Now let us look at the rules defined for variables and data types. We have gone through the different data types that are used in Python in a detailed video. Please go and check it out in our channel. Here, let us look at what are the rules for variables. As we already know, Python is dynamically typed, and hence any variable that is declared in Python is directly assigned to a data type based on its assigned value. Here, if we see for x is equals to 5, x variable is now having the value 5, which makes x an integer. And then here, message is a variable which is assigned with a string value hello that makes the message variable a string. Here is valid is assigned with true, which is of Boolean data type, and hence is valid is automatically a data type Boolean. Let us go to the next. The one of the most unique and primary rule of Python is indentation. Indentation is used to define blocks of code. If some of you might already be familiar, if you have previous knowledge of other programming languages, you might know that blocks of code and defining blocks of code is done in different ways. Some use braces, where these braces, any lines of code that is written between the braces is considered a block of code. This allows for legibility, also easy understanding of where a certain function starts and ends. Some might also use begin, give blocks of lines of code, and then end. This defines the number of lines that is defined for this particular block of code. But in Python, it typically uses indentation. What is indentation? Indentation is typically 4 spaces. For example, if you see here, we have this line of code, which is actually a logical operation performed in an if condition. Here we see that there is a indentation gap between this line of code and this line of code. We have 4 spaces in between them. Or it can also be defined as a tab amount of space. Whenever you write a code and you hit tab in your keyboard, it automatically defines 4 spaces. So here in Python code, if you want to execute a block of code, you define it in a certain indentation. Any amount of code that is defined after 4 spaces, for example, and then you go with the rest of the code here. This is a block of code. You do not need to specifically imply that within the braces or start with a begin or an end, but anything that has the same indentation as the previous line of code belongs to the same block. So here, as we see, the if condition is only applicable to this part of the code, where if the if condition is valid, true, then this part of the code is executed. If there are multiple lines, all the multiple lines that is there within this indentation will be executed. And then after those lines of blocks of code is completed, it will then come to the else condition. And when it comes to the else condition, it will also execute. If the else condition becomes true, then it will execute all the lines of code that come under this particular indentation that it has. This is one of the most important places where programmers typically make errors, the indentation problem. You must make sure that the blocks of code are clearly defined so that there are no mix-ups. Next, we come to the rule comment. Why are comments used? Comments are used so that it allows for the documentation of the program that has been created. Not everybody can easily understand the Python programming code. It is important for us to comment statements, allowing people to understand what that code actually gets to perform. It might also be possible at some times that two different programmers might not understand what a particular code means when it is written by some other programmer. In that situations, when you document what a code actually performs and why certain variables are defined and why certain variables are being used, then it allows for everyone to develop on the existing code while adding new features to it. And when these new features are added, they can also be documented for anyone else to read the code and understand what it is actually going to perform. Here, for commenting in Python, we use the symbol hash. Anything that is written after the hash is not interpreted by the compiler, and hence it is skipped. This is typically only for the understanding of programmers who read the program. This is not executed in any sense by the system. It does not understand this part of the code that is defined after an hash. And also hash is only for any line of code that is defined as a comment. Any line that is defined after a hash is actually a commented line. What if you need to write multiple lines of comments? In that case, Python allows us to write anything between the 3 quotations, the triple quotes. Any number of lines that is written within these triple quotations mean that they are commented. The compiler typically skips over these lines of code while trying to interpret it. This is also done with the help of triple lines using the double quotations 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6. Write lines of code and then put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is a commented code. This is typically used for explaining detailed information about a particular point in a code. So that is all for today's video. If you like it, if you like that video, go ahead and click the like button. If you have any doubts, put it in the comments. If you want to share it with your friends, you can go ahead and share it. And please subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos as this one. Thank you.